I'm going to try and do a quick, fairly impromptu demonstration of ways to approach holding and fingering a large, low whistle. These are normal low D whistles. As you can see, one's got a conical bore and comparatively small finger holes. The other one's got a typical cylinder bore, like most of the metal ones that you'll find, and very large tone holes. And the large holes make it even harder for people with narrow fingers to cover the hole, or people who are struggling with the span, because it's easier to miss an edge of a large hole. But whatever, what you're trying to do is to get your fingers sealing these holes reliably. The left hand is rarely a problem, but the right hand, and I'll just do it on this because on the blonde boxwood you can see better than on the black one. Just ignore my thumb rest here. When you go straight on, your right arm is reaching a long way away from you. It's even worse on lower whistles, and low C, low B flat, whatever. You've got a long reach away from you. And what this does, when you address your hand to the instrument, if you put your fingers on the holes with just the pads on the holes, like on a flute or on a small whistle, which I can do on this, I don't have any problem with the span, as you can see, or with fingertip size, but those would just be extra complications. But when you go like that, you can see there's quite a kink in this wrist, and this puts strain there and there. If I try and play like that, it quite quickly gets painful. But it also, even without the pain, it puts tension into the tendons across the back of your hand, which make it hard to finger, especially the third finger, make it hard to do the quick controlled finger movements you need for just to play, let alone for cuts and taps and crowns. So it's a problem for that reason, but also it makes you're stretching more for that hole, and there's always a bigger gap. However your whistle's been designed, there's always a bigger gap between the F sharp hole and the E hole, the E finger and the D finger. There's always a bigger gap there, which you've got to stretch. And doing it like that, trying to play with your pads, is quite difficult. The way to address this, it's not strictly what people call piper's hold or piper's grip. I won't use that word grip because you mustn't grip your instrument. But on a pipes chanter, whatever kind of pipes you're looking at, I'm just using this little G-flute as an example, you're looking at a much thinner, smaller tube, and the finger holes aren't as big. And pipers actually play with all their fingers fairly straight across the tube, and playing either in the crease of the joint between the top and middle knuckles, or on the pad of the middle knuckle, and they do that with all their fingers. Now that's the true piper's hold, and it's not what we're going to do, or it's not what I do, and it's not what I'm advocating on the whistle. It's a bit different from that. It's related but different, because what we need to do, partly because of this angle, remember pipers have got the tube coming out of a flexible bag neck, and they can just hold it wherever it's comfortable for them, more or less. We're constrained by the fact we've got to put this fipple head in our mouth, and it pushes everything a long way away. So what I suggest doing is, if you start, forget your thumb for a moment, just put the pad of your third finger, your D finger, on the E hole. The pad of it, not across the tube. And then, if you go into playing posture, I'm just resting the fipple on my chin, the beak rather, on my chin. I'm going to keep my wrist as straight as I can, so that this is all relaxed. Third finger on the hole, straight wrist, and I'm just going to drop those fingers onto the tube. So first and second fingers onto the G and F sharp holes, F sharp and G finger, E fingers onto their holes. Doesn't matter where in the hand, where in the length of the finger they hit the hole, as long as they're actually going to seal it. And you can see it brings the fingers closer together. There's less of a stretch for the third finger to do, and your wrist is relatively straight. And so everything is much more relaxed and much more controlled. You can do the same thing if you're somebody with small hands who's struggling with the left hand, you can do the same thing. Position the third finger on the hole and drop these fingers on. Personally, I have no problem with the left hand, with the fingers much more curved than they are in the right hand, and not as far away from the body. I can play those all with the fingertip quite happily. But right hand, you want this wrist straight, and you do with these fingers whatever you need to get it. It's no advantage to start going across with the third finger, because you actually then have to spread the fingers further to get the span, and it makes things more difficult. So stick on the pad of the third finger, let those lay across, and then you just bring your thumb up wherever it's comfortable for your own hand to hit the tube. As I use the thumb rest on this whistle. But if we go to the large hold one, it's a bit difficult on this black tube for you to see, but exactly the same thing pertains. Straight on, third finger on its hole, drop the other two fingers on with a straight wrist, bring thumb up wherever it's comfortable underneath, and I'm not reaching for that third hole and missing it.